So in this film, we're looking at model, muse and real clients as far as a boudoir photographer is concerned. And we're looking at how they all play a part within business development, creativity, photographer development, and why they're all essential to a business in the world of kind of boudoir and being a photographer as such. For me, the three have to exist in unison, even though obviously all our money is really going to be made working with real clients. We'll get to that soon. But as far as the business development is concerned and kind of creative development is concerned, hiring and using a model on a regular basis, as well as trying to find yourself a muse, somebody that you get inspired with, is going to be absolutely essential for you to really grow as a photographer, both creatively and kind of looking at what perhaps others have done and trying to see if they can fit within your general business as well. I'm lucky, I suppose, that my wife Debbie, she made me ensure that I was photographing creatively on a monthly basis, and a Thursday afternoon I would basically always have somebody of some kind to actually be photographing. And that's when we were a very busy studio as well. In the kind of the years recently, when we launched the photo training for you, the Photographer Academy as it were, within a very short space of time, around about 3 months, I almost kind of got burned out in the teaching element, because everything that I was doing as far as was being videoed and so on with it, and everything that you hung on was the word or the demonstration. And I knew I had to be accurate to transfer skills, but I also had to inspire you to show that photography is not a black art. Anybody can do what I do. With a little bit of experience, with a little bit of knowledge, pretty much you can, create the kind of photography that you want to do. And I almost burnt myself out in filming, in fact. I don't know how influencers do it, to be honest. I've got no idea. But for me, I needed somebody, and the team listened. And we found an amazing young woman still in university, and she became a bit of a muse for me, a phenomenal model, Rio. And she literally saved me in the creative juices, as it were, because otherwise I was becoming a very, very dull boy as far as the kind of the filming, because what I was being paid to deliver for the academy and what I wanted to be able to creatively deliver for myself and for you, the academy, as it were two different things. So I thought we'd kind of cover this and kind of look at how they all play a different part for you. As far as a model is concerned, a muse, a real client, whichever it's going to be, that there's going to be kind of 4 main things that you're going to maintain during the course of leading up to the session and the session itself. The first thing I would do, doesn't matter if you're working with a model, a muse or a real client, creative ideas absolutely inspire you, and if you get inspired, it inspires them as well. The likes of Pinterest and everything else is so available nowadays. You can even have your own business Pinterest boards and invite clients to actually go there and see them. And this can be a changing kind of theme and look and feel, especially if you want to get a little bit more adventurous, perhaps with your boudoir photography. You want to take it a little bit more down the 50 Shades route, or even down a kind of figure art. These are things down as far as creative ideas. They've got to be spawned from somewhere. And, if you can basically fill your head with ideas, but you can also then allow some method to actually show both a model and a muse, and of course, real clients, your ideas, then of course, we're going to be able to develop it. So I always like to actually talk creatively when I'm specifically working with a model and a muse. As far as a real client is concerned, they're expecting me to be creative during the shoot, because that's what they're paying me for. So that's the kind of thing you've got to really understand right from day one, is the understanding that creativity has to exist in the world of your world of photography, whether you realize it or not, because otherwise you're going to either burn out, you're going to get bored, or you're not going to actually be delivering a great experience for the real clients. And let's face it, when we get to real clients, the most important part for them is the actual event. The photography itself is almost like an extra. It's like the cream on the coffee rather than the coffee itself. So the creativity that we must put into our everyday shoots is going to be spawned or created in some way on the lead up to introducing it into the real client. Both for real clients and for, of course, model and muses, we need agreements, we need model releases to basically ensure that we can use those images. I would say that is one of the most essential areas to begin with as far as a model is concerned. When you're beginning a new business up, or you're bringing new styles and you need marketing images to bring into your business, you need a full model release, and that needs to be discussed in advance, that they know that these images are not going to be just for fun. They're just not going to be in your portfolio, but they're actively going to be used in your marketing. So they need to actually give clear copyright release on those as well. One of the things I'll say though, when you're working with real clients, don't kind of expect that they're going to want their images used through social platforms, marketing, brochures, whatever it would be, because many of them, are going to say, well, no, that's not what I've come in for. I want this experience rather than you showing off my images around the world and everything else with it. So again, being clear of how you can use images is absolutely essential as well. But remember to have that discussion with the client, or make sure they're in your terms and conditions and so on. But if a client turns around and says, I don't really want my images used, please, then that's fine. You just make a note. You never use those images, and then basically from there you can move on. So as long as you've got a folder of images that you can use, you're not going to make mistakes. As far as the session's concerned, as far as a model, I would suggest that you ensure that you're booking more than 1 hour. 1 hour is not enough. You need at least 3 to 4 hours, because you need to almost repeat and you need to assess. So in other words, if you are photographing a certain kind of style that you're trying to develop, I would actually just, let's just shoot, shall we? These are the ideas. We've talked about them in advance. This is what we're going to be doing. And we'll just then see how it goes. And then we'll look at the images together, and then we'll kind of give it another go. And by having another go with the images, it then allows us to basically fix already what we should have fixed in the first place. Perhaps you need to pay a little bit more attention to lighting, a little bit more attention to the animation or the pose. Remember, when we're booking a model, you're going to be really using, the model for your marketing images or your portfolio, big images for the wall. So we need to make sure we're spending a little bit more time. So even if you only had one idea that you want to actually shoot, I would not just book a model for an hour. I'd book them for at least 2 or 3 hours, and really don't put too much pressure on yourself. Don't book 2 or 3 models in during the course of a day. You're going to be too head busy, and really what we've got to deliver is that something. For me, whether I'm working with a model or a muse, we'll talk about their kind of roles now in a minute, but whether I'm working with a model or a muse, we've outlined what we're going to be doing during the course of the day or the hours. But then we also need to actually have a creative time where you can work together, and in that collaboration you can start to actually create a different type of image, perhaps at a different level, or a different kind of lighting quality, or a little bit more edginess in the posing, or the way the client is dressed and so on, with the model is dressed and so on with it. So as far as the session is concerned, don't think when you're photographing with a model or a muse about how you're going to introduce it into a real client shoot yet, because you'll do that in the post-shoot analysis, where you're looking at images and going, right, does this have a place within our business today? I mean, my confidential boudoir was created by a client in 2002. That was her idea, nothing to do with me. And in fact, we first met the client because she used to sell us advertising space, and she came to our studio with it and loved what we did and everything else. And she came with completely kind of new ideas as far as the level was concerned. And from that, our confidential boudoir was created based on a client shoot from all those discussions that we had. And then so the session, and then it's the idea development. I would always encourage you with Model and Muse to be discussing as far as how you're going to, at the end, look at what were the best images perhaps, and then take them on a different journey, repeat them straight away so you know how to do it again, and then perhaps develop that one idea or two ideas for that last hour of the shoot or whatever it would be. I like it, in fact, with real clients. When we've done a lot of the training with my kind of business group and things, where I'm bringing groups of photographers together, we're doing a business day and we're doing a photography day. The idea development, we bring the idea in, I let them loose with models and real clients. Both of them are actually booked in on the day, and we split them up into small groups. I've always got a chaperone with the real clients as well. Not really their friend. Their friend can be there, but they're not in the actual shoot environment as such. But they know fully in advance if we're into an educational session in advance, because a lot of the things that we were filming as well for the likes of the Academy. So they know exactly what they're letting themselves in for. However, the nerves, it's huge if it's a real client, especially, it's been in a room with 3 or 4 photographers and not just one. And I'm not on about group shoots. I'm on about, professional photographers and how we're developing their creativity and everything else. But the development ideas, I need to talk through with the client as well, because we're going to get through to probably the last, 15 minutes of the shoot. And you're going to be on such a buzz. Your confidence is such a high. We'll want to actually kind of just develop some ideas and everything else. And this is kind of my idea of the day. We'll worry about it when we get there. And if you fancy doing it, great. We'll make some time, or we'll just play around with some lighting. When a client thinks they're being, oh my gosh, they're custom building this around me as well, they get a whole different kind of a confidence level that you just won't believe. I'm working on an idea for an award or a portfolio, or I need a new image for the front gallery. I'm just playing around with this idea. Do you mind if we shoot this at the end? Those are the kind of things that you can really inspire the client, the real client. You can definitely inspire a muse if you're working together in collaboration. Models can get inspired as well, even though they're there for the pay, as it were. They can get inspired, and they'll love to work with you again and again and again. But it can mainly inspire you as well. Let's not forget that. Bringing your genie to work is something that you are responsible for. It's just not kind of turning up and taking a few photographs. You've really got to bring your genie, your creativity to actually the sessions, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so working with a model, with good communication leading up to the shoot, a professional model, no matter how much experience they'll have, will allow you to develop both your basic ideas and your creative the concepts. So if you're just getting going, or you're just beginning a new style, I would absolutely book a model that you fit your avatar of client. Everything that we're doing, as a rule, is based on how the business can be monetized more. In other words, make more money within the business, and at the same time add a better experience or a greater experience for the client, and also give you as a photographer that little bit more kind of edge as well. So when we're looking at a model, we've definitely got to choose the person that is going to represent us and our business and everything else with it. A classic here, is it going to be a Rebecca, or is it going to be an Olivia? Rebecca in her 20s, Olivia not in her 20s. But choosing that client is absolutely essential. If our avatar of client is going to be X, and if they're going to be, say, a 50 plus, we need to get a model in who's a 50 plus. If the majority of your client is more of a curvy girl or a curvy woman, those are the kind of models you're going to be starting to look at bringing in, because those are the ones you're really developing the concepts with. Remember, when we're showing our portfolio images on the wall, even though your clientele might be of a certain size or type of woman, you've really got to also inspire them. So they really still look at, the magazine covers. They still look at, the Marie Claire and the Vogues and so on with it. They want to be inspired. They want to feel like that model. And at the end of the day, if we're talking about real clients, that's really what you're giving them, is an experience to make them empowered. So when we're kind of training ourselves using the likes of a model, it allows us to basically make sure we've chosen the right type of model so we can actually show off those images as well. A professional model will allow you to develop your future ideas to introduce you into your mainstream clients. That's, as I mentioned, probably the main thing. But a professional model will usually bring some pose and ideas and flow. And there's the the saying goes, from fingers to toes. And that's really what we're looking at with a professional model, that we can think a little bit more about the bigger picture and they can think about the details. So by doing that, what we then need to do is be able to translate what we're doing in a shoot with a model. As I said, we need to be able to translate that into a real client shoot. And we need to actually be able to actually coach the client in a way and not rely on them doing things just like a model did, because the reality is it's not going to happen in that way. So for me, when I'm working with a model, as I said, I really want to book them for a minimum of half a day, because by half a day you can get a lot more done. And even if you're just on repeat mode, doing the same shoot, but have those breaks, work together, talk together, look at the images together and see how you can get better together. A good model will really, really help you in that. And along the way, you might find yourself a model that then ends up becoming a bit of a muse. A muse is as old as time in the world of art, somebody to inspire you and collaborate with. There's going to be a payment involved with many. Some will obviously work just for the experience alone. However, when there's a payment involved as well, they're more available to you than perhaps actually if it's just in exchange for images and so on with it. But remember, we need these images to be able to show off, to kind of show off in social or advertising or marketing. So the great thing about even paying a muse the same rate as a model, because often these are kind of not models. They could be dancers, actors, friends, the girl next door, whatever it would be. But by having the payment there, it is a transaction, and it feels better for me as a professional photographer. Even though I might be working with somebody who isn't a professional model, they are still treated in a professional way, in a professional environment, which is absolutely key in things, really. As your muse can be a model, and they could have come from you booking a model and going, I absolutely love photographing you. Can we book another shoot soon? The thing that I would say is that when you develop a muse, you should be shooting with a muse on a bi-weekly or a monthly basis as a minimum. So trying to find a more local muse will help you, because you're not going to kind of have to drag somebody for 2 hours away, which is going to be costing you and them money to travel in and things, really. So try and find somebody local, and it might take you a while, and you might even go through 5, 6 or more kind of people that it's kind of not quite clicking there. Don't put too much pressure on yourself, and don't put too much pressure on the model to become a muse. But if you're putting it out there, you're actively looking for a muse, and you're looking through the dancers, a dancer shape and body, agility and everything else, just because they're not a model, they are. In the same way an actor can bring characters to the kind of the look and the feel and things, really. And at the end of the day, really what we're trying to kind of address is this person in front of me. I absolutely cannot stop photographing with them. I need to photograph them. It's that almost obsession when you get with a muse that you've clicked with and they've clicked with you. And whether it is a dancer, actor, model, or a friend next door, whatever, shoot art for art's sake. Do things as well during the shoot that it's there for you both. Work together, create the Pinterest boards, create creativity boards, whatever you kind of do together, so that you're all bringing your ideas. And she might have things to bring in that she kind of has, but she never even thought about bringing them in before. But creating the likes of a Pinterest board, and you both adding into the new ideas. And of course, a Pinterest board can be secret. So if you're using a Pinterest board within your business, you can create a secret board and at the same time invite others to collaborate. And you could have that board, which is for you and your muse and things really, and understand what they're kind of looking to move on to and so on. And just because somebody starts at a certain level of kind of what they want to do, whether it's implied or nude or not, if it's just lingerie, it doesn't matter. Eventually, you might be working so much together. Inherently, it's all trust. Trust is a key thing I haven't touched on yet, but I believe that working with a model, working with a muse, working with real clients, trust is the number one word that you should feature in everything that you write, in all your communications, the way that it works on your website. Obviously, not just the word trust, but words to empower them, and so they can feel like they're in a safe space. I've been lucky. I've always worked with a female assistant as a rule when I'm shooting in boudoir photography. When I've then developed on with working with a model a lot, who could be classed as a muse, then I can actually speak to them and say, look, do you need my assistant in on the shoots, or are we okay to work together? Because remember, it's not just the cost of the model, the muse in the day, it's also the cost of the assistant being around. Assistants, and I probably don't talk about them enough, but they can be the most powerful thing you ever put by the side of you in a photographic studio, in fact. And they're not just, runners or film loaders in the good old days, but they really are kind of technicians and creatives in their own right and things. So if we can basically develop it, it will allow a muse to kind of trust you enough, and you've built up that communication together, where perhaps you don't have to work as a male or a female photographer. I would always recommend that you're working with somebody else, especially in the early days of working with a new face. Real clients. Look, it's a business. And if Boudoir, in this case, is the business that you're in, we need to be busier with real clients, a real avatar. No matter what age group they are, what body shapes they are, we have to focus in on them. That's our number one priority. And one of the things when you're working with real clients, of course, you've got to understand that the nerves leading up to the session can be so much that people use it as an excuse not to actually turn up. So communication leading up to the day is absolutely essential, because, of course, we need them excited in a nervous way. But as I'm saying, or I said at the beginning, my real job is to give empowerment, confidence to somebody who perhaps needs that little bit of a pick-me-up or whatever it would be. And it's not, we're going to empower you, even though I use those words a lot on the website. We are going to empower you, but really what we're going to do, we're just going to give you a really great experience today. We're going to shoot some amazing images, and you're going to have some fantastic photographs to remember for the rest of your lifetime and things really. So because it's a business, of course, the preparation leading up to the event, it's essential that we get to know the client a little bit more. And even if you're a principal photographer, I would make sure that if you don't have time to be speaking to clients, which I think is a mistake, okay, by the way, I think you should be speaking to your clients, but at least your assistant or somebody in your admin team is really chatting through with them. So they've got a friendly face and a friendly voice when they come in, and they're already kind of a little bit of friendship kind of level has been developed and things. So remember, leading up and during the session, we need to calm the nerves, because that is going to be something that will stop the session being as great as it could be. We need to make sure that leading up to the day and on the day itself, they are getting the right advice on getting ready for the shoot, what to bring in with them, because we don't use studio lingerie in any way. We do use our studio kind of silks and nettings and so on. But as far as the lingerie is concerned, it's really to the client. So that dressing for success, what they've got to bring in with them, in the same way as we would have discussed with our model with our Muse, we also need to make sure the client more than ever before is told. Things like jewelry, things like accessories, shoes, stockings, whatever it is, make sure that you are preparing the client to bring in as much as they can. I usually go for something light and bright and something dark as well. And then it's really discussing with the clients what other things that they go with. So it's really needing to actually understand their body shape and what they use to actually create their own curve. Or whether they're happy in their own body skin and things really. As a man, at times it can feel a little bit weird when you're kind of discussing these things with a client beforehand. But the reality, if they're walking into a professional environment, the reception, into the studio and so on, trust is that word again, and they've got to build their trust in me, because my job and your job is to make sure that the client has just that amazing experience. One of the key things, again, when we're working with real clients, is they're going to need coaching throughout the whole of the session. Refinement to hands, refinement to body shape, refinement to where their hip is, and a knee is, and a head position, and where the eyes should look, etc. Everything needs to be coached. Whereas when we're working with the model, we're expecting from fingers to toes to be looked after by them. As far as when we're working with a muse, we would hope from fingers to toes. However, the reality is they could be the girl next door. So even though we're working together all the time, we mustn't forget when we start to work with real clients, we have to take control from finger to toe and all the way through. A real client as well will need continual reassurance, and that goes back to the nerves needing to be calmed. I would never say to, oh, that's not a very good shot, or let's not do that shot again. Stupid things I've heard photographers say, even in training sessions. I've pulled them aside and said, look, that isn't going to do your client any good. You need to stop saying things that you're just kind of putting out there. You don't even really mean what you're saying. You'll mean that you haven't taken a very good shot. And because of that, you're actually saying those words out loud. But in fact, the client now thinks it's them. So any negativity that you might be thinking about yourself as a photographer, you need to actually put away. All you need to talk about is the amazing. I'm not saying that you should sound like Austin Powers at any stage, but it is better to be more like that than a grumpy photographer and everything else with it and things really. So remember, at the end of the day, when working with real clients, it really is about kind of controlling and reassuring and coaching the client the whole time. Don't forget, you'll need to find out their loves and their fears. So body parts, what they like, what they don't like. At times, we've got to ask those questions with it. I usually will ask, does your partner like something specific? Because of the questionnaire the clients fill in beforehand, we get a bit of an insight into who they are, and they've already kind of marked, the part of the body that they love the most or they don't like the most and things really. And also they've also written down what their partner likes. And those are kind of really good ways to do it. We're not talking about intimate information, but, he or she really likes my boobs, or she likes my bum. And those are the things, one of the most common things we hear is a neck and shoulder. They can be very, very sexy. Well, if a client is telling me that, if they've written it down as well, we know those are things that we've definitely got to make sure we've got some shots of during the course of the session, to kind of really maximize the experience and the pleasure when we're looking at the images when we're finished. So you'll need to find out information about them, but you just need to do it in a nice way, and a questionnaire is a nice one as well. And obviously the pre-chats on the phone leading up to coming in for the shoot is a great way to do it. If you offer the likes of makeover photography as a part of your boudoir photography, then of course the client is in a full prep mode before session. So in other words, it's a great time for you to nip in and out and say hi and kind of just chatting about the questionnaire, or showing them some images from the portfolio in an album or whatever, to kind of really get your ideas. So as I said at the beginning, I think working with a model is the essential thing at least on a monthly or quarterly basis for a photographer. If you can find yourself a muse, try and work with them on a bi-weekly or at least on a monthly level, just so you can keep your creativity going. Because obviously if you're photographing real clients and you're doing 4, 5, 6 clients shoots in a day, you're going to be finding that you're putting them on a bit of a conveyor belt without you even realizing. And what we're really trying to do is actually bring some creative. And so when we kind of move then from the muse to the client shoots need a flow, they need a confidence, so that you as a photographer are confident in what you're doing as far as the flow. And it's also leaving you enough time at the end so you can work on the creative ideas with it. Hope you've enjoyed this session. We'll see you on the next one.